to the Wellness Movement on Zingo TV, channel 250, 251. I am your host, Julie, with Balance Life with Julie. I have some co-hosts here in the background.
I see it. I see
Coco.
him.
And I have a special guest. So I'm going to read his intro and then we're going to have a great conversation. So, Saleh, did I butcher it already? Okay.
You got it.
AKA the Vision Ninja. So you're probably asking yourself, how did Saleh become a ninja? Great question. Here's a short story. After several mind blown breakthroughs later, 5 Tony Robbins events, we'll have to talk about that because I just did one of those events. A journey through death, years of public speaking practice, and lots of self growth experiments. Saleh became the Vision Ninja in 2017. The journey started with a feeling of pure love to connect with people authentically, and then led by years of gratitude and continuing with millions of 30-day challenges, the discipline for becoming a courageous and consistent, inspired the ninja to be born. By the end of the day, I am all about but at the end of the day, I am all about transformation through love, self-love, vision, and habit creation. The journey will have its ups and downs, but I like to remain positive. I love creating a fun atmosphere for myself and people, and I'm always pushing myself to my next level of growth. So, Vision Ninja, aka Saleh. All right. So here we are. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you.
Yeah. So you're the very first guest I've had on with this like kind of revamped show thing that we're doing. So
Looks
I'm like,
good.
what's going on? Who am I?
Looks really good.
Thanks. Yeah, it's almost like professional.
It is professional. This is what we're all about.
So we had a chat a few weeks ago, and um, you have a bit of well, you have a very unique story. I mean, everybody has a unique story, but yours is uh, probably a little bit more unique than the average person. And so I think let's start there. So, can you share a little bit about some of the challenges that you've faced?
Yeah,
Recently?
so first, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure to be here and to really just connect with amazing people like yourself and your audience and the people helping out to make this happen as well. So I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, we all have our story. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but believing that everything happens for a reason and believing that your story will take you to your next level is huge, and it's huge for me. Obviously, I didn't see it like that before, but I do now. And I think the story me, you and I talked about, which revolves around wellness, was something that happened in 2012 for me when my dad had cancer, and the whole family didn't know anything about cancer. Right? You'll never learn about something until it's in your own household. So we didn't know anything about cancer, and we were panicking. Is this really happening to us? And now I need to study all about cancer. Obviously, my family is big, so we were all revolving around our dad and taking care of him. And he had to go into the hospital and everything. And I guess he had some sort of feeling that things are not going the way are they as planned. And every time he wanted to speak to us about, just in case if I don't make it, let's have this conversation, we were all in such denial that we didn't want to hear it. We were so focused on just trying to take care of him. And I was never very close with my dad. We didn't have a bad relationship. I was just never very close. We were all just busy people. And honestly, when that happened, cancer happened, that's when I became super close to my dad. And so his journey through the hospital, I was going to college at the time, to Baruch College, and I just really couldn't focus on what I was doing in school, and knowing that my dad was slipping from our hands every minute. And so I had my focus just on my dad. And so from the hospital and learning and trying to get him to the best place possible and insurance and all that, we eventually got him home. And by the time we got him home, I think we were more accepting that things are not going as well. And so for me personally, I just took that time to really connect with him on a different level. So whatever he needed, whether it's massaging his legs or medicine, or we took shifts, which was really good. We took shifts to stay with my dad, so I had the night shift. And then there were some hard days there where waking up in the middle of your sleep is sometimes the worst thing ever, because you're a zombie, but at the same time you're healthy. What are you complaining about, right? You're healthy. But it was beautiful. And I remember it got to a moment where my dad was no longer very responsive, and he was just kind of like laying on the bed like this. And I told my mom, I said, can I hug him? She said, of course you can hug him, that's your dad, go give him a hug. And so that was the best hug I gave my dad. I just really laid my head, rested it in his chest, and it just felt good. I've never hugged him like that before. And it kind of gave me peace, and it kind of made me connect with him on a different level. And so my family and I just really stayed with him all the way till I remember the last day, where we saw his breathing changed. And we said, this is not this is not the kind of breath that you can bring back with anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was just very fast breath. His soul is kind of really moving up, and I just couldn't stand it. I didn't know what to do. And I kept going back to the room, coming out of the room in the house, coming back to the room, and the condition is just worsening every time. My sisters were still asleep. My mom is in the living room. My two brothers were inside that room. And it was just like, oh my God, like, can I disappear? Because you're in such anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But it was important to also just be there, right? And it teaches you a lot. Like, life is so fragile, and that's what it was teaching me. You can be healthy 1 minute and you can disappear the next. And so we just really stayed with my dad until his last breath. And my mom knew what was going on, and we didn't know what to tell her. She was in the living room praying, just prayer position the whole time.
Yeah.
And we didn't know how she was going to react. And so when we told her, she just became the strongest person I know. She just got up. She said, I'm going to take care of my husband right now. And she just went in there, kissed him in the forehead, kind of like got him ready. And it just gives me chills to remember it, because like moms, you might think that they could be fragile about their husbands or sons or whatnot, but when it comes to the real deal, that moment, you better get out of the way. And so that's how I feel about my mom, where she took care of everything in that sense and just stayed strong for all of us. And then I had to wake up my sisters and tell them the news. They're younger than me. And that was the hardest thing I had to also do, because they were more attached to my dad than I was. Daddy's little girls. But that situation really, really brought all of us together, thankfully. And I think the piece that made this whole story crazier was what happened 3 months later. So this situation kind of like brought us together as a family, and we were great. We thank God for everything. And 3 months later, my brother, who was 2 years older than me, and I was very close with him, because you know how it is. You are closest with the younger, the child right after you, and the child before you, if you have a big family. So his name was Nabil, and he knew all my secrets. I knew all his secrets. I was the closest to him out of all of my brothers, because we just spent so much time together. He was the type of person that just really came to a room and lighted up. Like, he had that gravitating personality. And I think that's what made me wanted to be like him and honor him in that sense whenever, we were together. I mean, everything he did, I wanted to do. I looked up to him in that sense. And so uh, our uncle got sick, and my uncle called us. He said, I'm sick. I have my own business, which was a convenience shop. I don't know what to do. I need help. I need help with it. And he was the first one to say, I'm coming. Like, you're not going to stay in that shop for any more seconds. And that same day, he booked an airplane ticket, went straight to my uncle, like didn't even stop by the house, went straight to the shop. And he told him, go home. I got this. He said, let me just show you something. It's like, no, go home. I'll figure it out. He was such a family person. And I really, really loved that about him a lot. And in that shop, there's one more employee and my uncle's son who was 16 at the time. And so my brother worked that night. And then the next day, he came to open the shop as well. And he stayed working kind of like the whole day, basically. And that night, my uncle, he called my brother. He said, hey, we have some orders tomorrow. Would you like me to come to the shop and help out with those? He said, no. That's why I'm here. That's why I flew here. You're not, you're sick. Stay home. And that night, 3 people came to the shop to rob the shop, basically to rob the shop. And obviously your life first. So my brother and my cousin and the employee are like, I don't care, take the money. Our life is more important. And so they gave them the money. They have the money. But one of those people that came to rob the shop had other intentions. And his intention was not to just take the money. His intention was to kill. Come to find out later on, that individual actually came out of jail from Connecticut. And he had told them that he's going to do something bad. He told them in jail that he was going to do something bad. And they never really paid attention to that. And he took the money, but he let them face the wall, and he shot each person. My brother, my cousin who was 16, and the employee. And that was on April 1st. And I just spoke to him that afternoon. I just did a April Fool's prank on him. And we were joking about it. We were having a good time and laughing. And then I get a call at nighttime from my older brother saying, we were in New York. My brother who got shot was in North Carolina. I get a call from my brother in New York saying, come to the shop right now. Your brother was shot in North Carolina. And I'm like, stop it, Mo. Stop. Like, I was just talking to him in the afternoon. I did a prank on him, and now you're trying to do a prank on me? This is too much. Stop. I hang up on his face because I felt like he took it a little far. He calls again. He's crying. I said, Mo, do you know what you're doing right now? Like, it was a stupid prank that I did to you guys in the afternoon. You don't have to get me back to that level. He said, I am not joking. You need to come to the shop right now. And, I started panicking, but I still hung up. And he called me again. He's just like he's smacking some sort of wall. And I just lost it. I took my phone. I started running towards the shop in New York. And I'm calling my other brother in North Carolina. I said, tell me this is a lie. Tell me this is not true. Call me right now. I need to hear your voice right now. But he obviously never called me back. And I was still in denial. Got to the shop, and my brother is just crying and punching the door. And I still was telling him, stop, you're taking this too far. But then I looked back, and my mom was behind me. She followed me. I guess she saw me panicking and running out the house. And so when I saw my mom behind me, I said, shoot, this is real now. Something happened, and this is too real. Basically, all 3 didn't make it because the way they were shot, obviously, I didn't see the video, and I never want to see the video. But they were shot in a way where they just didn't make it. And that really, really took me to a dark place because it kind of gave me two options. Do I continue through darkness of the way I feel, how angry I felt at that moment, or do I see something bigger at that moment and make it create something?
So, I mean, that's two very heavy tragedies back to back. And I think that for most people, one is enough. They have a
Yeah.
hard time just handling one loss, but having, and it's also, I'm sure you've come across this in your journey. It's like it's also the way that it happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your father was sick, and that's one thing, but with your brother, this was
Right.
someone that harmed him or killed him for no
Mm-hmm.
reason whatsoever,
Yeah.
except whatever is out of balance within them and their ego, that
Right.
they chose to do this and took his life, took other people's lives, and completely changed um, the course for you and the course for your family. Because obviously, when someone is violently killed, it's the shock, the trauma, but it's not just one person who gets affected. It's an entire family and a community, and um, that's not an easy thing to come back from. You know, it's not the kind of thing that you can just get up one day and shake it off and off you go. It's this is a
Yeah.
lifelong journey.
Yeah. And I think what I guess what lingered with me the most is just the feeling of powerlessness. Just kind of saying, you know, wow, he was pinned to the floor and there was just nothing I or anybody can do.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
that's what gets me the most. Like, how did he feel at that moment? What was he thinking about? It, whenever I go that route, that's when I kind of like run away from and try to heal out of, because it's you can't just imagine what he was going through at that moment.
Yeah. I think it's probably a level of fear that most of us don't have to confront, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know. So, um, well, I'm sorry for both your losses, very heavy losses.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And so, did I share with you when we spoke that I 2012 was my year of reckoning too?
A little bit. You didn't tell me.
Oh, I was married and I had a husband who died of a heart attack that year.
Oh,
Yeah. So I know grief very well, and I also know that the way that you lose someone really colors
mhm.
your experience of grief and your journey and how you go through it. Like losing someone to illness is very different to losing someone suddenly. Your relationship with the person
Yeah.
is also really, really affects the journey. Like in my case, it was a husband, but a father and a son relationship is different from a brother, from any, like it's all so different and so individual. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, um, the loss that you're going through, there is a choice that has to be made, which is, do you decide that life is worth living?
Hmm.
And do you find a way to carry on, or do you just throw in the towel and go, this is unfair, this is unjust? You know, I don't believe in God, because what God would allow this kind of stuff to happen? So, what was it that made you decide that you were gonna um, turn your give your pain some kind of purpose instead of just being defeated?
Well, just the way it happened, losing my dad, then my brother. It's kind of like what you said. You can just throw in the towel and just feel crappy or change that meaning. This is just my personal. way of how I saw it. It's the way we lost our dad. Obviously, the positive thing that came for me was the way I connected with him. And so it gave me this powerful force of how I should connect with people. That's one. And it
Mhm.
also got us used to just that whole feeling behind death. I felt like my dad's death prepared me for my brother's death, which is a crazy way to put it.
Mhm.
But that's how it happened. And so from there, I was still in the university in college, and just the people that surrounded me there, my especially my professor from I was taking positive psychology at the time, and so my professor Sid, his name is Professor Sid, and just the way he cared for me as an individual and to grieve with me and his whole class and the organizations I was part of in college, specifically Golden Key International Society and Beta Alpha Psi and Student Government, those organizations, just the people there that surrounded me and took care of me when I was feeling at my worst, gave me a beautiful definition of appreciating life and appreciating people. And therefore, it made me make a choice to honor my brother and my dad. My brother, especially because I was very close to him and his energy. And so the way I saw people cared for me and then what has happened really took me out of that darkness and made me realize those two things happened to me for a reason, happened to all of us for a reason. Whether it's through whether it's a reminder, whether it's creating a bigger mission and a bigger purpose in my soul for people. And so the way people treated me because of this incident, I wanted to take all of those feelings that I was feeling, that closure, that care, that authentic way of living and giving it to others the same way it was given to me. In the same way my brother and my dad gave it to me, right? When they were alive. Especially my brother's energy. I think that's where I get my energy from because he always wanted to bring the energy to the room. And so I just made it my mission that no matter where I am, I'm going to bring that energy. And so I became even more proactive in college, where I was hopping into different organizations. And that really blessed me to accomplishing a lot while I was at Baruch College. And then from there, by the time I graduated college, I said, man, this is really, this is where I get my energy by connecting with people and helping them out. And so I never wanted anybody to be in the situation I was in, because once you are in a room of darkness, there could be a slippery slope that completely takes you down. And unfortunately, we have lost people to suicide because of that type of feeling, because they see a very hopeless world. But I think the biggest thing that helped me also is not to blame anyone or anything, because I could easily blame my uncle, right? I could easily blame, a lot of things. I could easily blame ignorance, like anything. It could have went to a whole different directions, but believing more in the good
Mhm.
is what totally transformed the way I looked at life, and it made me see how short life is. Like, people can say, "Oh yeah, life is short," and it's a phrase you've heard a million times. But when you have felt the phrase,
Yeah.
like, life is really short, I can tell you about it.
Yeah.
And it just makes you treat people differently and yourself differently as well.
Or when you hear the phrase, oh, life is precious. Well, when you're in a room, and I have, since my husband's death, I have been in a room with someone who is dying. My new partner, his mom passed away, I guess like
Mm,
4 years ago now. And we were in the room when she was taking her last breaths.
wow.
And that's a very different experience. And I think, like a lot of people, I think one of the problems I would say in Western culture is that we really push death away, right?
Mm,
We don't like to think about our own deaths. We don't like the thought of like potentially losing a loved one. And death itself, like the act of dying, is kind of done behind closed doors, and it's
mhm.
very mysterious. And when you go through losing someone, especially when you lose someone young, it gives you a different perspective on life, right? Like for myself, it's going to be 9 years this year. So
Oh,
sometimes my brain will do this calculation like, oh, I'm going to, in this many years, I will be the age he was when he died,
wow. Yeah.
you know? And it's just like the weird things that your brain does to try and situate itself in space. And I don't know about you, but um, in part of my grief journey, it's been challenging to I gave away a lot of his things, but there were a couple of items that I didn't want to part with, and one of them was his he was a road cyclist, you know, like Tour de France type bikes. So
Mhm.
he had a bike, and I wasn't like I didn't want to get rid of it. I don't ride bicycles, but I also didn't want to get rid of it. And my partner asked me, he's like, "Well, why don't you sell it?" I don't want to. Like, I just wasn't ready. And then yesterday I was out for a walk and I just felt this thing. I was like, I'm ready. Like I'm ready to let go of that bike. I'm just I don't need it. Like the person that that bike reminds me of, like it's not like he's on the bike, and the experiences that I had with him and the life that I had with him, like it's all inside. And so there's no physical object that I need to remind me of that because it's already here, right?
Yeah. I mean, whew, I'm so glad you had that realization. You have no idea because I connect with that a lot. You're ahead of me, just put it that way, because my my other brothers, they had all of my brothers' clothes in 2 bags, and it was a fight to donate them because my other brothers are like, to honor him, let's use his things like to donate it to people. So I'm like, fine, take that bag. I'm gonna take this bag. And so I'm like holding on to it. And I still have it. I'm not gonna lie. I still have his bag and I have his watch, I have his ring, and it's I'm attached. I'm attached to those items. Obviously they're not gonna bring him back.
Mm.
And this is kind of like the last piece that's latching on to me, I'm not gonna lie, where they're like, you gotta donate his stuff. Like it honors him, and it's hard. I'm not, I'm still there, and I hope to God that one day I have that courage to donate that bag. Um, there's a lot to go through in my mind, but this is why I'm in this spiritual journey, because I do want to have that peace and have him in my. I literally remember, I mean, it was in 2012, but he's in my head every single day.
Hmm.
I guess that's how attached I was to him as a person.
You know,
um
I do think that whoever you lose, it's not like you ever stop thinking about them. It's just
mhm,
there's this life, this current reality we're in, and
yeah.
somehow, I mean, I'll speak for myself. It's
Mhm,
been over 8 years. I still think about him. I don't think about him. I don't think about him in like, oh, I wish he was here right now, because I've
mhm,
accepted what has
yeah,
happened.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
his death is what got me into what I'm doing right now, I because he had a heart attack, and on the day of his funeral, I said, okay, I made myself a promise. I was going to try and figure out what happened to him and if it could be stopped. And so, you know, uh,
Wow.
4 years later, I ended up going back to school for nutrition and for coaching, and a lot of it was, part of it was because of my own health journey I was on, but a lot of it was also because of him. And I do the work I do, and I am as passionate as I am about it because of what happened to him, because it's, heart disease especially is so preventable.
Yeah.
um, in your brother's case, you we can't prevent someone going into a convenience store and opening fire. We can, and we can start to put together systems in place within culture and society where there's less desperation, where there's less
Mhm.
fear, where there's more education, there's empathy, there's compassion. Like, we these are things that we can teach. It won't happen overnight, but we can teach human beings to be kinder towards each other.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
that's one of the, things that anytime someone commits violence, it shows how much is lacking, not only in that individual, but what
Yep.
is missing in society that allows people to do that, right? If someone isn't in a desperate place, then why would they do such a desperate thing, right?
Right. Right. I
But
mean, but that's exactly why we are in our journeys, right? It's kind of like what you said. You're in the health and wellness journey, and for me, I am in that human connection journey
mhm,
where, whether it's working with young people or adults or whoever. And this is why I put a lot of social media content out there, because I believe that your message can go anywhere. You never know.
right,
Someone can read it and pass it on to someone, even if it's in conversation.
right.
So I'm leaving everything to be infinite, to go to any direction. And, that's what makes it a powerful mission.
Yeah, and I think, like, just coming back to this idea of coming back to loss, like, any it, like, we experience losing people, losing jobs, losing opportunities. Like, there's everyone's going to experience loss, and
Yeah.
what really influences the direction you're going to go in is how you perceive that loss, and
Mm,
what you decide that you're going to take from it, the positive, and how you're going to use it to propel yourself forward, because it's so easy to stay in the negative.
yeah.
And
Very easy.
it appears that we have the same coach, Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
which is funny, but he talks all the time about how life will give you an infinite number of things to be unhappy about, and but choosing things that you can actually be joyful about, and to look at the bright side of life, is that's really what the gift is.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Especially with being negative. Life can throw buckets at you, and it's so easy. It's easier. I feel like it's easier to be negative than positive. But when you do become positive and go through the show, however the show is, and you go through that storm, you feel so proud of yourself that you made it to the other side, and you have new strength
Mhm.
regardless of what happened.
Right. So what was it for you that gave you you shared a little bit about with your father, but with your brother, like, what gave you strength to carry on?
What gave me strength was the way, his personality, his energy, honestly, just his energy. That's what really gave me strength, because I realized how much people loved him for his personality and how much it made difference in people's lives whenever he was present. Um, and just remembering that, made me realize how much of a joyful person he is and how much of a gift he gave that to others. And it inspired me to do the same.
Mhm.
Like, he created such joy for people, and it made a difference, because look at how people are reacting. Look what kind of legacy he left behind, and it had an impact, all over, right? All over where he was, whether it's back home in my country, which is Yemen, in New York, in North Carolina, or anybody that knew him. He was the type of person no one wanted to let go.
Mhm.
And just remembering that, I said, this is the legacy I really wanted to adapt. no matter who I meet, I want to leave that beautiful impact. And so that really gave me that hope. It really lit that kindle within me because it connected so well. Others gave me that, right? When I was going through that loss, others gave me exactly that. And I saw and I felt the impact. And I said, that's why I'm attached to him too, because he had that impact. And therefore, because somebody else lit that kindle within me, right? Other people, and he did that for other people. That's what made me really kind of stay away from the thoughts that did not serve me and to go forward with serving people and lighting that candle for others and for myself daily and for my family, and just really connecting.
Yeah, and I think like that word daily is very important, because I think one of the things that I come across a lot when I have conversations with people is, how self-care is trendy.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know like, oh, what's your self-care ritual? It's like, okay, it's not really like something, it's not really about getting your nails done or getting your hair done, but it, to me, like, self-care is really daily spiritual practice. Whatever you practice, but it is having some kind of a reverence for life, and having some kind of acknowledgement of the spirit and the spiritual, so that
Mm,
you're, when tough times come, because they will, it's just the cycle of life. We're going to have high moments, we're going to have low moments, but to me, like, when someone truly has like a foundational practice that is rooted in something spiritual, it's that when those hard times come, they're able to go through those down cycles.
hmm.
It doesn't make the down cycles fun, it doesn't mean it's joyous, and it doesn't mean that it's not hard, it just means that it's easier to bear,
Right.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
That makes absolute sense, right? Because to kind of go back to what we were talking about, my dad's loss prepared me for my brother's loss. As crazy as it sounds, but kind of jumping on to other things that can prepare you for anything,
Hmm.
whether it's mindset, whether it's health, whether it's anything, right? We have to look at it from that viewpoint because, like you said, anything can happen at any time. And you just have to be ready. Ready or not, it's going to happen, right?
Well, I mean, like, I wanted to have this conversation in the context of what's going on in the world at large. Here, I'm just outside of Toronto, and Toronto's been more or less in lockdown since November,
Mm.
and we're yet again in another lockdown. And I'm not, I'm not saying that it's a good situation. However, I think that anyone can find ways to move through it with some kind of ease. And that doesn't mean that things aren't hard. It doesn't mean that financially things aren't hard. It doesn't mean that emotionally things aren't hard. But to me, this past year has really been an invitation to go within and do that inner work. So one of one of my practices is Vipassana meditation. Have you heard of it?
What is it called?
Vipassana meditation.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Interesting.
So in Vipassana meditation, they have centers all over the world. You can go, it's free.
Ooh.
Yeah. You enter into 10 days of silence. So there's no reading, there's no writing, there's no cell phones, there's no social media, there's no
10 days.
nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. There's no television. And what it forces you to do, you're meditating for 11 hours a day. What it forces you to do is confront yourself in a very pure way. And for many people, this is very uncomfortable because
Absolutely. 11 hours? Yes.
we have so many distractions. Like if I don't like something, I can just leave it there.
Mm,
If I don't like a show, I can change the channel. If I don't like what's on social media, I can go to the next post. We try and cater our entire life to our preferences, but in that we're always running away from ourselves. And so Vipassana is really about
ooh,
confronting yourself, right? So in a way, what has happened in the past year is, what the way my perspective is, it has given everyone an opportunity to deal with themselves. And it gets very uncomfortable very quickly. Like when you can't distract yourself with sitting in traffic and your colleagues and all the other stuff. And I mean, we have the internet. Like, just imagine 100 years ago when they were going through this, there was no internet, right? Um, that's one of, I think, the lessons in this past year is just confronting yourself and also having like some kind of a way of keeping yourself healthy. Because
mhm.
in my viewpoint, the virus is a gift that has shown us how unhealthy we are. And if we
Absolutely.
stepped into that and was like, okay, I can be healthier. If we stepped into that, which is a powerful choice, well, how can I be healthier? You can eat healthier, you can think healthier,
Mhm.
you can breathe better, you can sleep, you can move. These are all things that are in your control, and no virus can take that away from you, no government can
Yeah.
take that away from you. But many people, out of conditioning, just go into the fear response. You know, they go into the other, they go into like cursing the situation instead of accepting the situation and going, okay, what now, what next?
Yeah. It's kind of like basically taken. I totally agree with you with the sense of this year has been more of a blessing than anything else. And I totally agree with you because it removed a lot of distractions and it brought the attention to within for a lot of us. And it's everything happens for a reason. I'll just keep saying that. And if you use it, like you said, it's an invitation. If you use it for yourself, you'll grow. And oh my goodness, I can't even, I don't even know where to start with how much this year have helped me to discover who I am and to push away these distractions that rob ourselves from ourselves, where you don't even know who you are. So it gave us an opportunity. And for those that took advantage, they're thriving right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really good on my end, thankfully, because I got to visit more even though we were on lockdown, but I got to visit more family, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's all about perspective. It,
Yes,
it's really all about perspective.
absolutely.
And, you know, there will be other unfair, unjust things that will happen. And it's, if you can shift the, the, what's that saying? The person with the most perspectives wins.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever heard that, but it's like,
Yeah. Now I've heard something like that, and I mean I've been going through that this year a lot. That's the big realization I had. Honestly, it was one of the biggest ones because I was saying to myself, two people can be looking at the same situation from the same household. If they have two different perspectives, that's the biggest shift.
mhm.
And that was the big lesson for me. Whatever I was facing, I have to change my perspective. During this pandemic, I had two kidney stone surgeries
Oh, wow.
within 3 months. Within 3 months, and like you said before, I can say this is unfair. Why me again?
Yeah.
Or I can say, hey, this is an opportunity to start drinking more water, right, and get healthy. Look, I still
Yeah.
have my pill. I still have my pill, Stone Breaker. Um, but it isn't a matter of perspective, and sometimes these hard things will happen, and you have a decision to make. You can say this is a blessing or a curse, and
Mhm.
your body, your mind, your habits are going to walk you. Your manifestation self, your energy is going to walk you that path, however you align your brain with that certain perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's also there, just speaking with in terms of energy, there's an empowering and a disempowering choice we make. If we
Mm,
decide that we're victims and it's unfair and it's unjust and why me, that has an energy.
yeah,
There's
very gloomy one.
yeah, there's a heaviness attached to it, and so it can be really hard to it, to create anything positive if you're in that
Yeah.
mindset, right? But then the other, one of my favorite techniques of getting, of just kind of shifting energy is I will ask questions. I will literally ask questions to God or the universe or however you want to think of it. But I will always ask, like, what am I here to learn? What is this teaching me?
Mm,
How is this serving me? Because, like, let's face it, sometimes when you're given a really big blow, like it does not feel like a gift. It feels like a kick in the teeth, and it feels like someone's. It just really feels super. It Unfair is not even a proper term, but the empowered way of thinking about it is like, is asking questions, is being humble, is being open, and also going through the emotional charge that's associated with what the situation is. I think, like, sometimes in this past year, people are pushing their emotions down through food, through alcohol, through
mm,
too much TV, through online shopping, because what's coming up is uncomfortable. It's like, it's okay. Like, we are going through a period of loss,
right.
we're going through a period of grieving. There are people who have lost their lives, and there are others who are sick. And so, of course, there's a collective loss that's going on, and it's okay to grieve that. But you can
Yeah.
also ask questions of, like, what's next? I mean, to me, from what I do, the most logical thing anyone can do is you can take better care of your health. That's what's next.
Yeah.
Start with your body temple and treat it like a temple instead of a graveyard and a junkyard, right? Start there and see
I
what happens.
I think I totally agree with you. Even bigger, what there was a realization I had a couple of months ago, which is about responsibility. Really taking responsibility for things that are happening to you, like in your space, right, to you, instead of pinning that responsibility on things or people. Because when you throw that responsibility around and you say, oh, it's this thing's fault or this person's fault or the internet's fault, you're taking your own power and you're throwing it at somebody
Mhm.
instead of you owning that power and going to your next level. And so that was a huge realization for me, is take responsibility so you can have the courage to do things.
Yeah, for sure. Responsibility is key. So, how are you working with people with all of these adventures
So
you've had? Not fun adventures, I should say.
So the fun things that I've been doing with people now is through vision boards, which is right behind me, right there, as you can see. That was my way to connect with people. To connect with people is to get into their mind and to show them a way to build their vision. Because the reason we get so overwhelmed, because our vision is right here and we're not letting it out. There's 70,000 thoughts going through your head daily. And so, you know, I've been just helping people bring that out into paper so they
Mhm.
can see their real potential. If
Mhm.
they can create their vision and align their habits and take responsibility and take consistent small action, it's going to help them the way it has helped me and brought me out of so many things. And I'm pretty sure for you to be this successful, that's what helped you. Small, consistent action with a vision.
Oh yeah, I have I have a vision board. It's like over there.
You're going to have to send me a picture. I got to see it.
There, there.
Oh, there it is. Yes, there it is. I get so excited when I see vision boards.
In fact, it's actually saved on my. Hang on, it's the backdrop for my phone too.
Yeah, there you go. It's like wherever you go, whether you wake up to your room or to your phone, it's constant manifestation.
Yeah.
It's time for us to be on our side,
Yeah. It's so powerful, and it's important for people to kind of get out of this left linear
Mm,
logical way of thinking and find a way to dance again with life, find a way to play, to explore, to have fun. And you know what? Have a massive vision. Who the heck cares? So this morning I do a journaling exercise at the start of every morning. I do a gratitude journal. Then I write down like what are my short-term goals, what are my long-term goals. And I found myself writing something and I thought, well, I'm just going to write this down because who the heck cares that it's only 3 years from now? Like, I don't actually know how long it's going to take me to get that. And it's irrelevant. The point is just to put it to paper and put it down.
yeah. And there's a reason why it came to your head. I honestly believe from the bottom of my heart that every person was created because they are needed in this earth. And
Mm,
therefore, we must not let any other things distract that powerful impact that someone can do. And I'm so excited about that.
yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So, well, while we were doing this, there were little tickers, I guess I'll call them tickers, that came across that had your Instagram handles on it. Um, and so hopefully people can scroll back and look and find those. But you have a website that you're building?
Yeah, so I have a website still under construction right now, but people can connect with me on Instagram under Saleh underscore 426, or also on Instagram, Vision Board Ninja. They can find that as well, or on Facebook by searching the Vision Board Ninja as well. I'd love to connect with you. We gotta create this impact together, and you never know what it's gonna do. So let's connect.
Yeah, nice. So, I really appreciate you coming onto the show and also sharing your journey, like sharing about your brother, sharing about your father. Like that's that's very deep, emotional stuff to be putting out there. And so I appreciate you being so open and being so willing to go there with me because it's not like we know each other in real life.
I appreciate you so much. And honestly, I do it for the impact because you just never know who's listening. If we
Yeah.
can help one person, that's already huge.
Yes, I hope so. So I'm gonna like do the outro of the show, and then I guess there's gonna be music. I hope. Yeah. So this show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Her network is a part of Spanglish World Media Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.
Tune in.
Tune